Hey there, fourth trimester listeners. Our program today is proudly sponsored by Family Album, your secure haven for sharing baby photos and videos. Head over to the App Store today, search Family Album, one word, download the app, and start creating a legacy of love, one photo at a time. Hi, I'm Sarah Trott, and welcome to the Fourth Trimester Podcast. I'm a new mama, and this podcast is all about postpartum care for the first few months following birth, the time period also known as the fourth trimester. My postpartum doula, Esther Gallagher, is my co-host. She's a mother, grandmother, perinatal educator, birth and postpartum care provider. Fourth trimester care, our topic, is about the practical, emotional, and social support parents and baby require. And importantly, it helps set the tone for the continuing journey of parenting.
Hi, it's Esther back on the Fourth Trimester Podcast, saying hi to our listeners. We have a wonderful guest today, Deundra and Stephanie, who are the mother-daughter duo.
Yes.
And they call themselves Bear With Me Duo.
Mm-hmm.
They're mother and daughter doulas. And we're going to let them talk more about themselves in just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I want to remind our listeners you can go to our Facebook page. We have fourthtrimesterpodcast.com, an online site where not only can you learn more about the podcast, but you can subscribe and find our Patreon page if you'd like to do some sponsorship of our page. I guess I mentioned Facebook. So we're happy to be here. And I've been very excited ever since Deundra said she would love to come on the podcast. And it was just a matter of making sure that everybody was free on the same dates. Mm-hmm. And we found our date and here we are.
Yeah.
And super happy. So I'm basically just gonna ask you each to maybe give us the story of what brought you to being the doula you are.
Yeah.
And of course, the fun part of the story for me is how the two of you decide to do this together. I've always had, an erstwhile fantasy that my daughter would join me in my work, but she's not biting. She's not biting. She's got her own thing going.
Awesome.
So Deundra, why don't you start and give us the story?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Esther, for having us on. So maybe just a little bit of background about Bear With Me, with the pretty long tagline of a mother and daughter doula duo is who we are. Both of us natives of San Francisco, specifically residents of the Bayview Hunters Foreign community, which we're completely proud of 94124 residents.
Nice.
And no, thanks. Mm-hmm. Both of us have been trained. We chose to do our training through Cornerstone Doula Training, which Cornerstone Doula Training Services, actually, they are a mother and daughter team also.
We're just carrying it on.
So we're carrying it on, which is a little bit of the attraction of wanting to train with them. So really, I started out wanting to be a doula many years ago, not having a clue as to what a doula was. Mm-hmm. What I knew when I was a young person, actually in high school, that I wanted to be an OBGYN. Or more specifically, I wanted to deliver babies.
Yeah.
Didn't really know that was OBGYN either. I was just in high school. I just wanted to be that person on the other end of a baby coming out of a body. And I didn't know how to get there and what it took. Had a great family, but was discouraged along the way with things like, do you know how much that costs? It's really hard to be a doctor. Are you sure you like science? So as a young person, hearing those kinds of comments, I thought, well, I guess I'm not meant to be this person.
Yeah.
And I took another path. Fast forward many, many years later, sitting in a totally unrelated training. I'm also an educator. I'm a teacher. And sitting in a teacher training, the person facilitating said to our group, "Hey, tell us what you want to do. What do you all want to do? What's your goal in life? You know?" And I kind of sheepishly raised my hand and said, if I had my wish, I would deliver babies. Well, why don't you do it? I said, too old. I have kids. Yada yada yada. She then said, "Well, then why don't you be a doula?" Had no idea what that was, and began researching and looking things up. And still, many years later, I decided to go for it. So that's my background story.
And
here I am. And here I am. So that's my background story, how I became a doula. Yeah.
We have a similar story, Deundra. I was in high school. They were asking me, "What are you going to do in college?" I said, "I don't know about college, but I want to work with mothers and children." And they said, "Oh, you want to be OBGYN?" I said, No. But I'd never heard the word midwife or doula either.
Exactly.
So all these years later,
there you are.
Finally figured it out.
Yeah.
That's great.
What about you, Stephanie?
As a kid, we actually found this homework assignment that I did where I wrote down on a piece of paper that it said I wanted to own a store for babies. And
we just
recently found this piece of paper, and something happens from the minute you're a kid up until present day, where sometimes things get lost in translation, or you experience things that kind of move you away from the innocence of knowing what you want to do as a kid. And it wasn't until the latter years of college for me, where I was in a health communication class, where I realized some of the injustices around health communication that people of color, specifically myself as a Black woman, that we face, and not understanding the rights we have in medical settings because we don't understand the medical terms, which means we don't ask questions just because we don't know. Mm-hmm. And that sparked a lot of interest for me.
And you feel vulnerable.
You feel vulnerable. And here you are on the other side, the person without the white coat. So that must mean that I don't know, right? I don't know what to ask. So I remember having a connection to that. And shortly after finishing college and getting my degree in communications, then I became a mother and I was pregnant. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I've taken these courses. I want my experience as a pregnant woman and as a laboring and birthing mother to look different than what I've learned and what I've studied. And so I was always attached to that, not knowing that I would later become a doula, but just knowing there's something there and there's an advocacy piece that I felt connected to within myself. So I labored and birthed my daughter, and my mom was my doula. And maybe that's where it kind of brewed.
After she had me interview.
I did.
Let's be clear. I had to interview for the job.
It didn't feel like it to me. It didn't feel like an interview.
It was an interview.
It was an interview. It was. And after having my experience and birthing my daughter at San Francisco Birth Center and birthing her unmedicated, I felt a sense of empowerment. And I took everything that I've learned, everything that my mom knows as a doula, and shaped my experience. And shortly after, I actually began working with my mom, just assisting her and helping her because she was a doula without me at that time. And I started getting attached. To her work and to her clients. And I realized, wait a minute, that advocacy piece that I'm feeling, my birth experience, I am meant to help shape and mold those experiences for other expecting parents. And it was in those moments of helping my mom that I realized I'm meant to be a doula. Mm-hmm. And my midwives saw it when they would come over for my postpartum visits, and I stayed connected to my midwives at the birth center, and it was this natural relationship. And my mom says she always knew that I would get to this moment and to this place. And she's like, I wanted to wait for you to see it. And I saw it on my own. And then it just made sense. Like we're supposed to work together. And we've been working together ever since then. But then we,
That's fantastic.
yeah.
So since when is that? Yeah.
May, almost a year now.
Yeah,
Excellent.
It'll be a year in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's been a year.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You made it through the 4 trimesters.
We did. Yeah, it'll be
That's
almost a year now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
And if I could comment, Stephanie mentioning advocacy and finding your place in this work of advocating or for folks in social justice work. I've learned over the years that can look very different for different people.
Mm-hmm.
I was just sharing with someone that I really truly believe, especially after reading, the really popular report that the Centers of Disease Control have put out last couple of years ago, with 2016, I think the numbers came out. Reading the disparities of that are there for women, specifically Black women and low-income Black women, around high mortality rates of babies and just misinformation and failed attempts at which should be pretty easy and healthy births.
Mm-hmm.
It came clear to me that this work as a birth worker was also the place where I needed to do my work around helping others.
Yeah.
So it's like we're super lucky and that we get to work with some amazing families, some amazing and outstanding birthing persons and mamas, but we're also being really strategic and targeted, to be honest, about making sure that we are in our community and we are trying to spread this word about what doulas are out. We're out here, labor, delivery, and postpartum, which I know we're going to get a chance to talk about.
Yeah.
The huge value of postpartum doula work.
For sure.
And also being able to just purely educate families and birthing persons around their choices.
Yes.
And we've dived really deep into our own history, our family history, which I can pass on, let Stephanie talk a little bit about how rooted our own family history is in this work called birth work.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So we've come to realize that the work we do is partially meant to bridge like this generational gap through maternal health, because there are a generation between the two of us, and then now 2 between mom, you, and my daughter Zuri. And we realized that there's a deeper connection. And as we were forming our business and leaning on family members and friends to shape our business and define it, we actually had a family member of ours from Texas, because our family roots are in Texas and in the South, actually say to us, well, you do know that we have family members that were midwives in the town in which my mom's family grew up in. And we were like, we had this moment, this clarifying, this deep moment of this was not by accident. These are our ancestors guiding us to this place, to where we are right now. And we haven't looked back since. We have not looked back since. If anything, it fuels us and it gives us energy. We're passionate about being birth workers even more now after having learned that information. But it was my great aunt, your great aunt, that actually delivered all of the babies in the town in Nacogdoches, Texas.
And no matter white, Black, everything in between, she was the midwife.
She was the midwife.
Right on.
She was the person you called when you were
She was. And it's
talking about being on call.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
No,
right?
I tried that. That's really on call.
It is. But it, like I said, it fuels us. It gives us the energy we need to continue to be committed to the work, just because it's running through us. It's running through our blood. So it's no surprise now that we're here, but we love sharing that story. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It is.
Well, and what's also interesting to me in these stories, this story, is how, had you not connected backwards with your family, you might be two gals living in San Francisco, never knowing that you have this honorable through line. This auntie no doubt learned it from an auntie or a grandmother or right. Absolutely. So this may go back
centuries
to Africa.
Exactly.
Right? As far back as anybody could go. Like we don't know.
We don't know.
But I do feel like it's a wonderful moment to connect up with, I do this, I'm passionate about this, and what brought me here that I don't even know about, don't even see.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Absolutely. And that little break that happens is fascinating.
It's fascinating. I think in that space, that break, that space that you're calling a break, happened to our family, but it happens to so many families also. And what I'm thinking about is in particular when we work with a client in the family, we're noticing, and probably a lot like yourself, Esther, too, you're noticing you're sitting there talking with the person who's preparing for birth, and then we have these conversations naturally about family. Mm-hmm. What's kind of who's your support going to be in postpartum. Mom, we're always very sensitive, we don't know as we're learning, but is there a mom? Is there a grandma? Is there auntie? And what I know we're learning is how that break has actually a pretty clear date, year, and time in our American history, when the work of doulas was started, and largely when birthing became a man's job. And birthing became, and be really specific, a white man's job as the doctor.
Mm-hmm. Or just the barber surgeon.
The barber surgeon, absolutely.
Yeah, and he had the tools.
He had the tools, so he did the job. And that birth workers were, over time, thought were said to be, you're taking your baby's life and you're putting it at risk, and oh my gosh, they're not trained. And so really, again, this taking away of this really powerful support that women were giving women happened in our family, but it has happened in many, 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 many families across the country, across the Bay, right here in San Francisco.
Yeah, across all of Europe during the Inquisition years. Exactly.
All of those things taken away. So, with Stephanie and I, and with Bear With Me, that is always at the core of our work. Is we see, one, we're working with families to educate them, but we're also reconnecting. We're reconnecting something that was broken, and we're hopefully reconnecting so that we can get back on this wonderful path of doula work,
of women empowering
work, midwifery work, and women empowering work, each other's. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
nice. I love that.
Thank you.
Well, I know you talked very briefly about your work prenatally and helping families connect to their history and their power and things of that nature. In the interest of time, sadly, I hate the interest of time. I'd much rather there not be time, but here we are. Why don't we talk a little bit about then, of course, how you work with your families in the postpartum period, which we've acknowledged is so critical in the U.S. It just, there's nothing that really, unless doulas are doing it, exists that's care in the fourth trimester.
I want to start by sharing a little something, and then tag team you in, my duo buddy. I was talking with my son this morning, and he's because of our work, he's now a Bear With Me midwife doula advocate himself.
Oh.
Yes.
So any chance he gets, he's talking about doula work.
Yes.
And his opening line has now been, do you know what a doula is?
Yeah.
Like, just straight out. He
Yeah.
just asks people,
Hi.
hi,
Do you
know
know
what a doula is?
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention that because really briefly, because I think it speaks to, and he shared with me a conversation he was having with a work colleague, and he had to just really break it down so clearly for this person of what specifically postpartum, why the postpartum work was important.
Mm-hmm.
It was like his explanation about the labor and delivery work we do seemed
People
like she
can
got
connect
that.
with- yeah.
Right? But the postpartum work and he had to break it down for her in such a way that essentially boiled down to this. The fact that in having a doula in postpartum allows you to have someone in your home to work with you, to answer questions, to provide a hands-on support, to guide the early days of your newborn baby being in your family and your life in such a gentle and loving way that you would not get without a doula support. And I'm just standing here going, this is my 25-year-old son who is just eloquently breaking down our work.
Yes.
Okay. So when I wanted to do this podcast, I said, I've been doing this work for, 40 years really. And I've watched the culture from the birth of my daughter through to now, and I haven't seen much change really,
You're right.
on a cultural, social basis. And I don't know what it's going to take for culture change to happen. But that story tells me culture change is happening.
Yes.
When a 25-year-old guy can tell his neighbor, like, here's what you don't know. Here's why you need to know it.
Yes.
Here's what could be really different for you in your lifetime. And change the generations to come.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
That is exactly what I'm shooting for. That's
it.
So great. Like when people ask me, well, who should listen to your podcast? I'm like, everybody.
Everyone.
Everybody.
It is. And
everybody.
I think for me, I made a very conscious decision to involve family members in my experience, even in my postpartum experience, for these reasons right here. The shift, yes, happens within the birthing person, but it also happens within everyone around you, because if the people that support you can benefit from your labor and your birth and your postpartum experience, the hope is that it shifts their thinking so that then for the next generation or for the next baby to come, whether it's their own or whether it's a friend, they can influence the thinking around where birth happens, how it happens, and to who it happens. And I really think that that's where the value is in having, family members, but also having men in your family as well, and in your support system, understanding what that can look like.
Yes.
The men in my life were very instrumental in my postpartum experience. In my postpartum experience, in my 4th trimester, was also shaped by my midwives as well, cluing me in on the good pieces of information, making sure that I carried out my vision for birthing. So that way, when postpartum showed up, I knew, like, okay, I want to encapsulate my placenta because that may help me feel just a little bit better.
Good things to eat.
And even just my midwives coming and showing up at my home and examining me in a place that I felt comfortable, rather than me having to be so vulnerable after just birthing a baby and then walking into a different setting.
Get in a car? Are you kidding?
Just getting in the car, right?
Drive somewhere.
That's a challenge.
Get out of the car.
Yes.
With your butt hurting.
Yes. And possibly your newborn baby in tow. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Too much.
Yes.
It's clearly too much.
It is.
The fact that we do it just, right? Like, it's not doing ourselves any favors, right?
Yeah.
I just saw an article that said, oh, we've been failing women in the postpartum period. We're going to offer them more visits. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. No, you don't. Not if you're asking her to go to your office.
Yes.
That's not it.
To be
That's
cared for. No. You're asking her to drive in a car in an altered state with a baby who might be hungry.
Yes.
Show up in an office, sit and wait for you, and then be examined.
Right. Absolutely.
That's not care.
That's not care.
Hey, fellow parents, can we take a moment to reflect on the joyous chaos that is parenthood? You know those days when our hearts swell with love at the sight of our little ones and we're bursting at the seams to share every adorable moment with the world. But let's be real. Some things are better kept in the family, and your loved ones who matter the most aren't always close by, and they might not be that tech-savvy either. So how can you easily share your baby's beautiful growth with loved ones while keeping your precious memories secure? I remember the frustration of trying to use some of the big tech photo solutions, only to find they fell short of what I needed. That's when I stumbled upon something truly remarkable, the Family Album app. The Family Album app was created to give parents a secure and easy way to share photos and videos with loved ones. It's an orderly and totally secure haven for your family's personal memories. I love that there's no third-party ads, no unwanted eyes, unlimited storage, and that it's totally free. So to all the parents who are out there still trying to use other messaging apps for your kids' photos, it's time to level up your family photo game with a free photo sharing app. Head over to the App Store today, search Family Album, one word, download the app, and start creating a legacy of love one photo at a time.
I mean,
I tend to be harsh about these things, but
Passionate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, darling.
About it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what you don't know if you're thinking that just by offering people the opportunity to come to you,
absolutely,
you're doing them a favor.
Right.
You are not.
No, because I 100% agree with you. I mean, postpartum care, as we see it, looks like this. Mama staying in bed. And that was when you speaks on what does her care look like, that's what it looked like. That's what it looks like for our clients we work with. Staying in bed, having food prepared for you, not having to think about, not even having to order on an app. Come on, guys. Having it prepared in the home. It looks like helping getting in and out of a bath so that, as you mentioned, the healing process is gets the optimal ability to heal and get repaired so that we can continue to move forward. It's being able to have someone care for your baby so you can shower or get into that bath. I was just recently working with a client postpartum care, and it was just really interesting how they couldn't believe that all I wanted them to do, and this was a night shift, was to just sleep. They're like, that's it? We're just supposed to sleep? No, that can't be it. Let me look it up to see what you're really supposed to be doing. I said, trust.
Yeah.
That's what I'm supposed to be doing, as well as, of course, a nice little list of extra things I can do to support you. But
while you sleep.
Right.
If your baby's sleeping, guess what?
You get to sleep too.
Exactly.
So you're absolutely right. As we've got to, I think, as we're shifting and as we said, reconnecting these generations of information and support and help. I think in that reconnection, we've got to teach, right? A lot of it is teaching. What really does postpartum care look like?
Yes.
And what are you entitled to have in that care? And I agree, not coming for more appointments that you have to get outside.
Right.
Yeah, having skillful, knowledgeable, compassionate people come to you.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's what, to me, the word doula in general and specifically postpartum care
absolutely
really represents.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I'm sitting with you two here, and I think if ever there's a way for women to connect across socioeconomics,
yes,
this might be it, right? Like, if you aren't going to ever have your own children, at least you were born.
Yes.
And that affected you from the beginning.
Yes.
And you're in this.
Yes.
With every other woman on the planet.
Absolutely.
You can't escape this. It's fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
It affects us our whole lives,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yes.
And it, honestly, if we could connect with this, think of
Which we can.
the shift. Yes, we can.
Which we can.
Absolutely.
We absolutely can.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say 100%. And if we can connect with that male piece into that,
So important.
we believe there's
important.
so many separations around other areas of our lives if in regards to possibly, single parenting, and that's not by choice, because I know there are some folks who make that as a very conscious choice for themselves. If it's how do we, co-parenting, elements of, I think, this even, educational levels, like how do people contribute to that? I think that all is rooted in birth.
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
We think that's all rooted in birth, and that we're not just about birthing babies or postpartum care for babies. Those are hugely important pieces. But how might our work make other shifts and other connections in our world?
Yeah.
We think it a lot.
Yeah.
We think a lot.
Right. I mean, fundamental respect.
Ooh,
A fundamental sense of resource, that there is this thing in the world that shows up for us at when we are vulnerable. Doesn't mean we're disempowered, but we are vulnerable. We all benefit from, this sense of support and resource. We're not a better human being if we somehow manage to bite the bullet and do without it. Right? That doesn't make us better, stronger, cuter. Like nothing. No, it just means we survived.
Right.
That's it.
And survival isn't the goal.
No.
Connection,
Yes.
love,
Intentionality.
Respect.
Respect.
Yes.
Happiness.
Justice.
Justice. Fairness. All of those things. And we all every human being deserves that.
Yes.
Every human being. So
Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well, so now I'm curious. What else do you have to tell us? Like, this is all great stuff. And, you're a little bit fresh to it, which I love.
Yes.
Like, I'm just always so happy to be in the presence of newer doulas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Being kind of an old
Seasoned.
doula.
Now
Seasoned
seasoned.
is the word we like to use.
Seasoned.
Very seasoned.
Yes.
All goodness. All goodness.
Like, what are you noticing out in the world of being a birth and postpartum doula that is really interesting to you, or that you're it sparked your curiosity in a way that you want to do a deeper dive, or just maybe it's troubling to you, like, why is this thing happening again and again that I haven't, been able to pierce? Because I can tell you, after 4 years, I got lots of those.
Right.
Like, why hasn't this thing?
Right.
Why is it still looking like that?
Yes.
So I'm just really curious, like, what's up for you?
Yeah. If I flash forward and then connect it to where I'm at right now, my ultimate goal is to become a midwife. My ultimate goal is to become a midwife because of the experience that I had laboring and birthing my daughter, and also understanding the lack of Black and brown women that are in this field of work that we do, and understanding the impact that it has for a Black and brown woman to walk in to her healthcare setting and see someone that looks like her, and understanding the power of that. And for me going, okay, this is a skill and a gift that I have. This is why I'm doing the work. Bringing it to the present moment right now, I see such a need for me to do this at this point in this age in my life, because I'm so influential right now.
Yeah.
I'm connected to the youth, and I'm in this interesting space where I'm still connecting to teenagers, and then I'm connecting to young adults that are my age as well. And I feel like it's such an impressionable time right now, and a good space for me to be in, to use the platform that exists already, and then growing one. And no, it's okay. And you mentioned you being a seasoned doula, and for me, it's respecting the doulas that have come before me and then adding this new wave of advocacy onto it so that young people can understand the value in it and not thinking that it's something that's this hippie, earthy thing. No, this is about our rights. Everybody. You have the right to have this experience, and making the connection that you may not be pregnant now, but there may come a time where you are pregnant, and I'd rather you have the information and be informed so that when you get to that place, it's a way of thinking. It's something that you've already bought into, and it's not something that you're preparing for because now I'm pregnant. And I'm in this place where it's like, I really want to shift the thinking. I'm shifting the thinking around what it means to appreciate and understand your health, advocate for it, and then feeling prepared when that day comes, or if that day comes, or if there's someone around you who may be expecting as well.
Well, I don't know if this is your experience, either of you really, but here I am working with women who aren't that much younger than me. And, they're going to be hitting menopause soon after becoming mommies.
Absolutely.
And every one of them who's finally managed to find the time in their lives and move in the direction of having their family, it feels as though they're reinventing the wheel.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like it's as though they're the first pregnant person ever born.
Yes.
And what have they got? They've got Google.
Yes.
Right? Unfortunately, they needed something else way before that.
Yes.
And this is just the reality now, but it is the thing that I think, just think if these women had the opportunity to give as much of their attention to their sexuality, their sexual health, their reproductive health. In ways that are reality-based, not just show up for the pap and show up for the mammo, right?
Right, because you're supposed to,
Because it's time. Right? Think of how their decisions around their fertility might be different.
Right,
know?
I agree.
I agree. I don't know. It seems to me like if they had a reality check and just didn't think, well, I've got 10 more years. And then if anything goes wrong, I go see the fertility specialist, and then the stats for that aren't so great.
Right.
Just because you can look around and find those women does not mean that we are all just going to get lucky at 45.
Right.
So it's an interesting time to live, right?
It is.
And I agree with you. The fact that you're someone situated between the teens and the 40-year-olds, that's powerful.
Thank you.
Good for you.
Thank you.
I love it.
No, that is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
That's a good. I think as I'm listening to you both, I was sitting here thinking, well, what is the thing that's kind of that's getting at me, when it also, because and I think I know what I'm sitting here thinking about as I'm listening to you all is how do we get back into play things like classes and learning for women in a way that is natural and easy for us to access. Esther, you and I, because I don't think, Stephanie, when you were in school, there used to be classes around, as problematic as we know they would be today. All the boys go to one room and all the girls go to another. Right there, we got a problem if we were trying to do it in that way today. And even then, there was a problem. We just didn't, I didn't address it. But at least there was some attempt to have some information that was brought into school environments where young people could learn some things. As you mentioned, now the result, I believe, or where folks, young women are learning, and even young men, and in those in between, you're learning, and folks identify in various ways. They're going on into the device, and they're Googling it, and that's how they're learning. But we all know in birth work, that's not it.
Right.
That there's education in ways that is heartfelt and real and birth and rooted in facts. So I guess
and
what gets
also,
me is
I
those
think,
things.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry, but I think that what was missing both from our era of education, we sat in desks and looked at the teacher for
Absolutely.
right? There was nothing that was putting us in relationship to each other. Here we are, all the ones contending individually with our sexuality. We might be talking to our girlfriends and our boyfriends. That might be working fine. Might not be.
And that's another podcast, right? Right.
Exactly.
That's another conversation.
But you know what you put me in mind of was during the height of the feminist movement way back when we were still in high school.
Absolutely.
What women were doing were called encounter groups. Remember that term?
Yes.
You guys are too young, but maybe. But, women were calling each other up and saying, we need to get together in the living room and figure this shit out. And how are we going to do this? Because it's going to take self-education.
Yes.
And that was the genesis of the doula movement as
Absolutely.
well.
That was
the genesis.
I like the second wave or third wave of the doula movement going away. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so no reason why that can't be happening. And I think midwives and doulas are we're offering the groups. We're saying, show up, new mommies, pregnant ladies, bring your daughters, and maybe it'll be the task of the doula and the midwife as it evolves in our culture to be getting at the younger girls, wrong term, bringing in those younger women and saying, let's talk about sexuality and fertility and reproduction and all of that. And if your son's any indication, right, this will not preclude men.
It should.
Right?
I think we certainly believe it shouldn't.
It won't preclude anybody of any gender identity. It will mean, hey, we've all got sexuality.
Right.
We all want to learn about it.
Right.
And let's sit down and have those conversations, whether it's in circle or in living rooms or in a space that we're utilizing for those conversations. But the conversations, again, back to your question, what is it that's gets to me, that's on my mind, is that it's that combination of me being a doula and being an educator and a teacher, is that there's this voided space of learning and education that I know we're doing as doulas and birth workers and midwives, but I'm really interested in how do we expand that, right? Because I don't believe we can rely on, our schools aren't going to revert back to doing, whether it was a flawed way that we learned it, which we definitely have all kinds of reasons to say it was.
But better than a poke in the eye.
But better than a poke in the eye, or just a look on our electronic devices or our social media posts, right? Yeah. So that's my thing. I really look towards educating and actually having opportunities to teach at an earlier age. Yeah.
Well, let's get on that.
Let's do it.
We're doing it. We're doing it.
We're actually doing it.
Well, any parting thoughts? You guys are awesome. Why don't you give us your contact information?
Yes.
How do people find you?
Yes. You want me to take the lead?
You got it.
We are on social media. Okay. We're online. It's a reality of, we feel like, running our business. You can find us at Bear With Me Duo, and the handle is, as it sounds, it's BARE with me duo. And you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can visit our website at www.bearwithmeduo.com for all of the information. And you can find out how to contact us via email in that same space and place as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Love to hear from folks.
Yeah, we really would.
Any questions, comments that, come up from this podcast, of wanting to understand anything we may have shared or wanting to know more about us as a duo.
Yeah.
I think it's clear this is who we are. This is our life destiny. It took us a while to realize that this is our work, but it's okay, and we just got affirmed from our auntie Hattie Mae.
It's brilliant.
Who let us know that this is where we're supposed to be.
Yes,
that is fantastic. What a wonderful thing to find out about.
Oh,
thank you.
It just shifted us in such a positive way. So,
love it. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Deundra. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yes,
I'm so glad we
anytime.
were able to do this. And I think that the world and the world of the Bayview Hunters Point.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just so thrilled about that.
Yes.
And of course, any way that I can sort of push that into out into the world and into our communities, I'm very excited about. So listeners, see you next time on the Fourth Trimester podcast. Thanks for joining today. Check out our social media, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
You can subscribe to this podcast in order to hear more from us. Thank you for listening, everyone, and I hope you'll join us next time on the Fourth Trimester. The theme music on this podcast was created by Sean Trott. Hear more at soundcloud.com/Sean Trott. Special thanks to my true loves, my husband Ben, daughter Penelope, and baby girl Evelyn. Don't forget to share the Fourth Trimester podcast with any new and expecting parents. I'm Sarah Trott. Goodbye for now.
Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing all that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I'll sing a song for you. You got your wheels, you got your gears. You ride around town without any fear. You got your pedals, you got your brakes. You always wear your helmet for safety's sake. Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing all that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I sing a song for you. Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing the best that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I sing a song for you.